Okay, there it goes, John.
All right, just share your flag.
Okay. Okay.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance
allegiance
To the flag
of
of
the
the United States of
States
America
of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands,
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
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 under
under
God,
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 indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty, and
liberty
justice.
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Roll call. Mr. Carson,
here,
Dr. Fike, Mrs. Love, Mr. Polakowski,
Here.
Mrs. Raymond,
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Here.
Mrs. Heather Smith, Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mrs. Love, Heather Smith, and Dr. Fike informed us they would not be present for tonight's meeting. Citizens' comments? Jan Kiefer would like to speak. Do you have him, Mr. Pushkar or Dr. Clara?
With Mr. Pushkar does.
Okay, I have him on the line. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jan.
Hi, hello. My name's Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenue, Scottsdale. I'd like to talk about the agenda items tonight. The 5-minute opportunity for public to call in at the last meeting was again bastardized. You called for the 5-minute, you went on to discuss things deliberate amongst the board, including Mrs. Love, and then bang, there was no time period elapsed and you moved into public comment. There has to be a period of silent meditation or something between whenever you give out the 5-minute warning. And Mrs. O'Rear, instead of the chair saying her topic or topics were not on the agenda, the chair should have asked Mrs. O'Rear, please connect what you're about to say or what you just said to an agenda item. I think Mr. Patonic should have stepped in at that point too. I don't think she was given a fair chance to make her public comment, and instead of cutting her down, I think you should pursue the facts first. If I have time, I'll talk about the situation in India. But you know, we really are on the level of Hitlerism. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Service, we all know what that agency is, but there's a sub-agency under them called the Resource and Service Administration. I'll tell you who they are in a moment. But
Mr. Kiefer, could you, Mr. Kiefer, could you,
to run that agency?
Mr. Kiefer, could you please tie this to the agenda? Please tie this to our agenda.
Yes, vaccinations are important in that the teachers are vaccinated, and that was an issue before they would go back into the classroom. So that is tying the teachers into the school agenda, and I think that's a pretty safe connection. May I go on?
Continue. It needs to be related to the agenda that we're speaking on this evening.
Okay, well, I just related it to the agenda. If you're going, Mr. Patonic, I would recommend speaking.
We're not talking about vaccinating teachers tonight. It's not on the agenda. There's no change in the school schedule.
But if we're talking about the health of the students, which is part of every meeting, then wouldn't vaccinations be an issue on there. I mean, I can keep talking and we can keep trying to link this back in until I make my point. Or maybe you can hear what I'm going to say next and it'll all make sense. I don't care how we deal with this, but you know, this is a Fifth
Continue,
Amendment,
please. Continue.
and I'm having trouble hearing you with,
Go ahead and continue.
thank you. So Dr. President Biden is considering a man, Dr. Senator Pan. He's a California state senator, and he's nationally known as the most advanced, influential backer of forced vaccination. He's even after the homeschooled children in California at this point. This sort of, this man is one of these people that would say that the anti-vaxxers are in the top 10 threats, that domestic threats. But anyhow, I told you what they do. They have access to one of our government services, in the medical industry, regardless of the damage and effects of the advice and the procedures. They're the people on the ground, the public health, looking for the people who are in the rural parts of the country who need access and connection with the healthcare system. That could also be tracing and monitoring. And they're also into telehealth, like the public schools are into telehealth. But rural health is one of my favorite topics. That's all. Thank you very much. Can I keep the phone on and hear this meeting?
No.
I went to Ivan, they don't tell you how to listen to the school meeting. I can't get it on YouTube, and I can't even see the Community Action Committee site.
So
I'll assist him.
none of those have anything to do with the school, and you should be able to go to the school or go to YouTube and click on the link.
I'm on YouTube and I'm waiting, and I just don't know what to do. I'm looking at your old meetings,
I
things I
mean,
go through all the time.
maybe you should get off and get back on. We did start a little bit late.
I've done that 5 times, so I hope that's it. Thank you. Goodbye.
Do we have any other comments? Okay, superintendent information.
I will report out next week.
Okay, business manager and budget report.
I don't know if the whole board received from Mrs. Williams and Mr. Masha the updated status of the general fund budget, but in summary, our current deficit at this point is $303,549. So we're showing expenditures right now at $31,826,570. And revenues at $31,523,021. But there's items on that spreadsheet that I would like a sign off on to actually enter into our budgeting module.
Mr. Marnell, can I interrupt you for a second? I don't have anything that says those numbers. What I was sent from Mr. Mashta today doesn't have those numbers on it.
Did you get an email from me?
This says Monday, May 3rd. But those aren't the numbers you just said.
Well, this one that I sent, the last one, is version 1.10. Still has today's date.
Well, this says that net change is 385,000, not 300 and.
Well, that's at the above. That's where we were March 31st. Now you have to read down the page to see the changes.
303.
Yes. You see the 303 about the middle of the page?
I do.
Yeah.
Is this available for the public?
It certainly can be. You just have to put it up on the screen.
Can we do that so people know what we're talking about? Because I don't think it's in board docs.
No, it's not in board docs.
So, Dr. Claire, if I send that to you, could you share?
Yes.
Now, part of our expenditures right now are 4 items that would come out of our fund balances. For example, we have the $50,000 in there that's called budgetary reserve. We have in there $73,000 for potential refunds, meaning tax appeal refunds. We have $43,975 in there for paving. And we have the carryover number of $28,850, which was to respray the primary center roof, which we're not going to do, but that was rolled over in the budget too. So those total $195,825 that would come out of fund balances. So potentially right now, the operating deficit would be $107,724. And again, you know, this number is floating depending on what is and is not added to the budget for adoption later this month.
So, can I stop you? You mentioned a number for paving.
Yes.
So you're saying that we're not using that money this year and you're rolling that over?
Well, that's what happened when I started the budget process in January. I rolled over numbers that were
So
already.
that should not roll over. We are planning to use that money this year. So,
Are you going to use it before year end? In other words, before June 30th?
well, even if that rolls over, you're going to need to double that amount of money then, because we're planning to use that money plus do other paving. So,
Well, then we would need to add to that existing number what the
Yes.
additional amount would be for paving. That's correct. Same thing with the primary center roof. The $28,850 is certainly not adequate for what the final cost will be once you approve a bid. Again, you'll have to add to that number what the potential project would be. And right now you have assigned fund balances of $868,270. Now that is made up into 3 categories: capital improvements, $150,000; cyber school tuition, $510,807; and tax refunds, $207,463. And the unassigned fund balance is standing at $2,387,436. So total fund balances of $3,255,706.
Forgive me for interrupting, but that document had some other information on it that was for personnel that I can't put up on the screen. So I apologize. You'll have to look at that some other way, but.
so in this budget then, what we're proposing as revenues, no money that is in there for cyber school, that $510,807. That none of that money's been moved over to help balance out the cyber school costs then, correct?
Well, that's correct. It is there for you to utilize.
Also, I think I had talked to you about changing the interim back to a more reasonable.
Well, I took out my suggested change for those 2 revenue items. You'll notice that on this update, they're gone.
Right.
They were listed. So they're gone. And we still have discussions to go on to. Remember, I sent out today the budget prep sheets, and I penciled in actual numbers, year-to-date numbers and actual numbers going back to 12/13, so that we can settle on what potential estimated amount we will put in some of those local revenue categories.
And then our expected Act 1 increase is somewhere roughly around 400,000-ish, right? Depending upon.
Sure, there is a Between the proposed tax increase as calculated by using the state budgeting program, plus the increase in taxable assessed values, between the two categories, increase in assessable values and increase in proposed millage, it would net out approximately $519,000 more property tax dollars. And I sent out a copy of my spreadsheet on that this afternoon.
What time was that, Jim? I've got so many emails to track.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to go back to my emails, which I'd have to reload my email system.
I'm sorry, never mind.
Yeah.
Did you send that to everybody?
Well, but we can certainly do that. And in fact, Mr. Masha and Mrs. Williams have it. So, you know, you folks are, if you have your email up and running, go ahead and send those out.
So I think it's really important that we update the public from the last meeting when we thought we were getting $640,000 in a tax one increase, which was very different from the beginning of the year. I think it's misleading in budget numbers to say that that is not what we're going to be getting. I know that there was a lot of questions about that and things going on, but I think it's very important for everyone to know that that is not the correct number. We're not getting $640,000 with a tax increase.
Yes, we worked through that new state form and we worked with PDE. We got the updated numbers inputted into that system. And we got the proposed millage rates as high as their system will allow. It does not get us to the maximum Act 1 index increase. So we cannot get it there because anytime we try to add more as potential revenue, it puts the Act 1, it puts the proposed millage rates over the Act 1 index. And I sent to Mr. Masha and Mrs. Williams and Mr. Patonic the updated sheet for that. So you're correct. We can't go to the maximum rate. So again, that would change your potential of new tax dollars. And of course, what was misleading was the fact that the 634,000, which was estimated back in January, it actually was not all Act 1 increase. That was a definition of that. That was actually both a potential Act 1 increase and the added tax revenues from the taxable assessed values going up. There's the two components that make up the potential new property tax dollars. So yes, it was misleading, but that was my fault with the way I typed up that line item. Right now, the actual amount using the state system is about $519,000 for potentially new net property tax dollars.
So what you're saying is that we are $303,000 in deficit, but that does not include a lot of things such as, now there is money in there for a teacher contract for next year. There's money in there for a couple of other things, but it doesn't include the other contracts that we still have to figure out, correct?
That's correct.
So what's your suggestion here?
Well, I suggest we continue the dialogue. We look at those items that are on the page. If you're okay with items listed 1 through 11, which I think are pretty much done. I think you've already approved some of those items. I'll input that into the system, but anyway, that'll just update the budget numbers, but we still have to come to a conclusion on those items that are listed at the bottom of the page, you know, the to be determined items.
Well, that's only going to make our deficit larger.
Potentially, yes.
So don't we have to figure out how to fix that?
Well, first we have to determine what those potential increases will be. And then, of course, you have a decision to make. Do you make further cuts or do you use more of the assigned fund balance and potentially the unassigned fund balance to get through the 21-22 fiscal year? Some of these items you can put off for a future year, the track project, tennis courts. You still want to go ahead with sidewalks and paving projects and the roof, of course. Again, some of those monies can be used from the assigned fund balance. And remember, you don't have to use the assigned fund balance the way it's in the system. You have flexibility there. You know, I separated it into 3 components, you know, capital improvements, 150, which was the proceeds from the sale of the Roughdale building. So any of these items that you do, the roof, tennis courts, whatever you decide to do, certainly that amount of money fits there. The cyber school tuition, we have a budget in there for cyber school tuition. You can allocate all that 510,000 towards next year's cost, if you choose to do that. And you can reallocate some of that tax refund money. Again, that was a money I set aside some years ago when we were looking at cases that were outstanding and what might come to fruition. But
Well, I'd want to talk to you about that in executive session first because of a litigation item.
well, see, there you go. That's a slippery item to get a hold of. So, but you're right. There's a lot of items yet that still have to be decided on. Do we, and again, the state budget, that's still outstanding. Are there more items in the existing budget that we could utilize either the ESSERS 2 money for or the ESSERS 3 money?
Do we want to go down through that revenue, which might be easier than looking at some of these other expenditures that need to come off of here?
Are you okay with those 11 expenditure items that are spelled out and with dollar amounts? I assume you're okay with paying off the Chromebook.
Can you explain to everyone why it only says 31,000?
Well, because on a previous budgetary update sheet, if you go back to the one that was dated March 31st, that had the $300,000 amount. I got a payoff figure, which was $331,783. So an additional $31,783 would be used from the ESSERS money. Now I can go back and I could take out where we were on March 31st, which is shown on this page at the top. That's, try to make the form readable. I left off all that stuff that was approved as of March 31st, but I can go back here and take that March 31st update, I think, because I did have a systems crash and I lost some items. But anyway, so that's on there. That's on there as of that update on March 31st. So that's
Jim,
just,
if I may,
go right ahead.
on the Chromebook situation, I'm not understanding what you're saying. Are you saying to use ESSERS money for the 21-22 year payments?
Yes,
Or-
I got a payoff figure dated August 1st.
Okay, but that would still leave us with another year of,
No, that
Payments.
pays it off. No, that pays it off.
I thought it was is it a 3-year plan?
Well, it was a 3-year plan, but remember, we put a down payment on it. So that
Yeah.
down payment paid for into the future. Our monthly payments were scheduled to start November 1st, 2021. So instead of going back to making monthly pay, we didn't know more federal money was coming back when we
True.
planned on using the CARES Act money. We used 300,000 of the 349,000 towards a down payment for the Dell Chromebooks and laptops.
So the total balance due as of today on that is how much?
Well, I don't know what it is as of today. I got to pay.
No, I don't mean, just, this
it'll
time of
be-
year.
It'll be $331,783.
And we've already paid how much?
We put a down payment of 300,000.
Would there be any benefit to pay that off early, Mr. Mornell?
Well, that gives you the opportunity to use up that federal money because we used federal money to make that down payment. If we had had enough federal money way last spring, instead
Yeah,
of 349, we would have bought all the laptops and Chromebooks with federal money. But under the previous administration, they didn't give out that kind of money. So the other 49,000 of that money was used towards the stand-up stations for taking temperatures. It was used for the handheld temperature takers, modifications to the water fountains so that kids wouldn't put their mouth on the fountain. They would have to fill up little bottles. Stations, stand-up stations for hand sanitizers, masks, gloves, and such other items for fighting the spread of the virus. Also on this page is, we have the updated CTC budget. So our payment will come down from what I had budgeted, $7,725. Of course, you stated that you wanted the salary and benefit costs removed for Mr. Novikov because he left our employment to go to the CTC. So that was $154,774. You just approved updating a plan agreement with Mr. Kiefer. So that's additional salary and benefits of $28,517. You stated that you're going to be hiring a cafeteria or a custodial supervisor with salary and benefits, and we use $50,000 as the salary plus, an estimate for benefits, so that comes to $92,000. You want to replace the custodian at the high school who was accepted to be a maintenance worker. So again, wages and benefits, $45,000. And there's a payout figure for myself for unused sick and vacation days. Now that'll come down because, days have been used, but that right now that was $31,188, a payoff figure for Mr. Swink for sick days and vacation days, $9,400. You just approved a salary adjustment for Mrs. Sutton. So that's $15,480. You're going to be contracting out for psychological services, $50,000. And it was decided by administration to purchase that with the ESSERS 2 money, $50,000. And we got our new health insurance rates from the Westmoreland School Health Consortium. So, I budgeted around a 10% increase. It's actually around 3%. So take off $132,631. And that's those 11 items.
Mr. Marnell, the custodial supervisor position, does that fall in line with the same price we would have been paying for Mr. Swink?
Well, that's exactly right, because we
Okay.
had in the budget, we took out $92,000 for Mr. Swink.
So you had taken it out and now you're putting it back in.
Yes, it was out. It was out
So
as
the-
of the March 31st update. So now it's back in, but under a different function code.
Okay. But that's not technically an increase to the budget over last year because that position was already there.
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted the public to know that we were not increasing Act 93 by some exorbitant amount of money based on these positions, because that would have been a wash. We already had a person in a position that was paid that amount of money with benefits. So that should equal out. Also in Mr. Novikov's, we basically are saving $154,774. We are increasing Raquel Sutton's salary, so that would come off of there. We will still realize a substantial savings with Mr. Novikov. No longer here. Does anybody have any questions about these amounts being accepted into the budget? And obviously these sick day and vacation day payouts will change if any days are used, correct?
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions about those? Mr. Petonic, should we make a motion for that to be accepted as part of the ongoing process, or are we okay just with a verbal for him to change those?
You don't have to formally vote, but I mean, obviously, if there are people who, really are against something, it'd be really incumbent to hear about it so that you can know that you've resolve this process, this pay, that part of this page, that's what I'm trying to say. So that has been my concern, that sometimes in the past, there's no real finalization of some of these numbers, so. I'm not making you take roll call votes. I mean, if people have objections, you should speak up, and if necessary, then maybe you'd have to.
Personally, I'm having a hard time because there are things that go with this from March that we never approved, but I can't see them anymore. But like the paying off the computers for 300,000, that's in there, but we don't see it. So.
Well, I keep paper copies now.
Well, there's nothing on board docs in March either, so I can't pull that up, and no one in the public can pull it up. I'm concerned because the public should be able to see these things, and there's nothing that they can see budget updates since January.
Well, what Mr. Masha and myself and others can do, we can pull out the emails that had all that and then repost it. That's, I think, easy enough to do.
Yeah, because I think what is confusing, I mean, not just to us as board members, but that would be confusing to the public, is that, what we've gotten that's dated today, May 3rd, references things from previous budgets, and it makes it hard to kind of get the full idea, and it looks like we're adding $92,000 for a custodial supervisor when in a previous draft, we had taken money out for a position from someone who was no longer there. So like it looks very confusing, I think, to the general public to kind of understand that we're not exactly adding $92,000 because money's already been subtracted from another position. So they kind of are just a wash, really. But it doesn't and I'm not saying it's anything that's wrong with this. It's just hard to understand this document alone by itself.
Well, I will scan and send by email right now the sheet that was as of March 31st that lists all those items that were discussed. Maybe I was wrong to assume that they were approved. They were discussed extensively in those budgeting and finance committee meetings. But I'll send them out and I'll send it right now so that as you go on through the meeting, then if you want to look at your emails, and I'll send it to everybody, you can pull it up and say, well, you know what, we need to revisit some of these things, because you'll see the things that was previously decided to utilize the ESSER funds for, and you will see the reduction of taking out Mr. Swink's salary and benefits. So I will send that right now. So that way you'll see that where March 31st ended, the number agrees with March 31st that starts on tonight's sheet. Those numbers for expenditures and revenues and net change in the deficit are the same. So I'll send that right now. So excuse me, I'll go to the machine.
I think part of the confusion is that some of these things happened inside a finance committee meeting. So other members of the board weren't present for all of those meetings. So some things have occurred that I'm sure were discussed at great length during the finance committee meeting, but we all weren't kind of privy to that information. And I'm not sure how many of those summaries of the draft we all received. So that's probably part of the confusion as well. Because I think some of us that are involved in other committees understand some things that have gone on in those committees, and such as the money for the paving, we expected to leave that money there because if it just keeps rolling over, we can never afford to do all of the paving we need to do. So the same thing happened with Mr. Swink's position. Whenever it was taken out, we immediately said that needed to be put back in, but it had already come out at a finance meeting.
Is this email coming from you, Mr. Marnell?
It would be.
It will
Mr.
be
Tony.
shortly.
Oh, okay, all right,
I had to restart the email system.
okay.
So I have a form that at the top says second working draft of the general fund budget. And it's laid out estimated revenues and other finance sources, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, the code numbers, local revenue state. And then estimated expenditures and other financing, but this is dated February 9th. Do we have something updated from then that lists all of that stuff? Estimated expenditures, because this looks different than what we were given in February.
What he is sending you, because I already have it. I'm sorry, I could have probably sent it quicker. Did you get that up and running yet or no? Mr. Marnell?
I'm getting ready to send it.
Okay. It's similar to this paper and has all of those things listed.
Okay, I sent it.
Can we get this all uploaded to board docs so that the public can see it for the next meeting, please?
Yeah, I'll put it in.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I know that Dr. Clara took this down because it listed some personal information. I think I need somebody to tell me what is on here that's personal, because all of this that I'm seeing on the paper that I have is basically should be public knowledge. I mean, if you filed a right to know, you'd be able to get this information. I mean, technically, it's part of our budget.
That's right.
And Mr. Marnell just read them all.
Yeah, Dr. Clara, do you see something on here that I'm missing that maybe is a reason? You know, I know that it lists out employees and their salary plus benefits, but there's no personal information on here such as social security, birthday, anything else that shouldn't be shared.
Yeah, I don't. I just wanted to make sure before I posted it that I didn't put something up that would be of consequence, because I didn't have a chance to see it before I was asked to post it. I didn't get to read it closely. So I was just being careful.
Yeah, I think that we could put that up. I don't know if we can put this first one up, the one from March 31st, that's going to list out that, you know, we're paying off the computers. It lists out some other changes that came out first. These have already all been taken out. If you wanted to share that with the public, I think that you could.
I'm sharing the one that you guys gave to me earlier. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting someone in a compromising position. I didn't have a chance to see it. I saw names and I wanted to be clear before we did that.
Dr. Clara, if asked, I also provided you the other sheet that was just sent.
Okay, I'd have to stop sharing and find it. So.
Can you do that, Dr. Clara? I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Because that would be our starting point. Really, that's, I think, whenever we first started to make some changes. So in going back to this page that came out on March 31st, if we start at the top of this, where it says adjust local revenue accounts for the interim taxes and earned income taxes, I think that needs to be adjusted. I discussed that earlier with Mr. Marnell.
Yes.
Is
we
this-
can do that.
Is this the correct one before
It
I?
is, thank you.
Very good.
So that was one of the questions I had on here was interim taxes in going from basically, I think what we had budgeted last for this current school year versus what it was increased to again, which, you know, you had discussed today that some of that got reduced because of what we were expecting versus what's actually occurred. But if you go back to that 4-year average, the 4-year average is only 49,000-ish. This year, we've only collected 36,622 so far. I just think that 108.5 to expect that in revenue that's a significant amount of money. The last time we predicted that we would get 108, we actually got 24,192.
Hello?
Yes?
I just wanted to make sure I heard silence. I didn't know if anyone
Yeah.
was speaking. Which document are we looking at, Madam President?
So we're looking at the document dated March 31st, 2021. It would be the one that he just,
Okay, I have it. And where is the gross revenue number to which you are referring?
I'm referring to, if you come to the very top of the page, it says adjust local revenue accounts, 6112 interim.
Okay,
Um,
72,500?
mhm.
All
Yeah,
right, I'm
that was a combined for the two accounts, interim and earned income taxes. Not just the one interim, but both.
Right, but I don't think you raised the earned income tax very much.
I'll reset them back to where they were. And then we'll revisit that as we continue through the spring, because earned income tax collections are still ongoing, and so are interim real estate taxes.
Okay,
And then there's postings after the fact, because the auditor looks at monies that come in July and August that pertain to the previous year. So then they get booked as revenue to the previous year, even though the cash is received after year end.
So we're supposed to have a draft of this approved by May 20th, correct?
Yes, I have to eventually change our internal system, revenues and expenses. And then I upload that information to the state. The actual state budget form is PDE 2028. So the revenues and expenses get uploaded, and then there are certain sections of the report that are hand entered to complete the report. And then I print that out for you folks to have for when you adopt your budget on the 20th. So that's where now we're on a time dependent to get whatever changes need to be reflected for the May 20th proposed final adoption.
So I have a quick question. The paper that is dated March 31st, has the budgeted revenues, even accounting for what you added in for the taxes. We were at 30,993,496 for budgeted revenues. And now on the paper dated May 3rd, our budgeted revenues are 31,459,04. So like most of the stuff on this paperwork is increases or decreases in expenditures. Do you have something similar that shows the increases or decreases in revenues that shows how we got from 30,993 to 31?
That's the ESSER's money, because I was confused as well. So the ESSER's money that we're adding to the budget is $457,408. That's one number that Mr. Marnell and I do agree on over the last couple of days.
Okay.
I had that number the same.
You just have
Okay.
to, you have to scan down that right-hand
Okay.
column.
Okay.
So you
I
have the
see it now.
revenues, then these are changes, adds to the revenue. So,
Okay.
But
I see it. I see it now. I'm sorry.
well, that's okay.
So my concern is we have very important contracts up right now. And I don't feel comfortable voting for a draft even May 20th if we haven't accounted for all of those contracts. There has to be some way, and we can't just have question marks as to what these things are going to be. And the way I'm looking at it, we can only get more and more of a deficit. So we have to start addressing this.
So I think ultimately we're going to have to sit down and decide what we are putting in for salary increases for these without everything being negotiated, to at least have some type of a starting point, because obviously we're going to have to pass a budget before things are settled.
Yeah, you could change your proposed final adoption from the the meeting of the 20th. I just throw this out as a suggestion, May 27th. And then you would be looking at the last week of June as a final adoption, Monday, June 28th, or Tuesday, the 29th, or Wednesday, the 30th.
A week is not going to make a difference in what is going on as far as negotiations go.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I agree 100%.
So, I mean, really, we have to be prepared to adopt something on May.
And Mr. Patani can answer this question. Are you tied to your numbers that you have on the proposed final in May? Do you have to go with those same numbers for your final adoption in June? Does not the school code allow for changes in revenues and expenditures due to changes in estimates and information that comes to light, negotiation?
I understand that things are going to change. That's what I'm saying. I know things are going to change. So we need to start dealing with it now. First and foremost, we should be taking care of our contracts and getting them settled. So we have to figure out where this other money is going to come from. I'm 100% certain it's going to change, and I'm aware that we're allowed to change it from one to the other, but there's no point in waiting to address these things. We should have been addressing them for a long time. Waiting until May 20th, between May 20th and June 20th to figure out where our money's going to come from doesn't make sense.
Is everybody okay with this page that's up now? Can we switch to the page that we're actually at and working on at this point? Is everybody okay with these ones? These can be added to board docs so that so the public can look. I mean, it's really hard to look at it on screen share. Is everybody okay if we move on to the other page? From today, the May 3rd page.
I
Dr.
don't-
Clare,
Just for the record, I agree that you can make changes. In the past, I've always expressed reservations about increasing total expenditures. I don't know that that's got a specific court challenge to it, but it's always been a concern. So I'll just leave it at that.
I think we always accepted the fact that we couldn't change our proposed tax millage rate. In other words, if you went into the proposed final with a 0 increase and then for the final to raise taxes. But I always thought.
Yeah, look, that's a problem too, but I think that part of the problem is already addressed in the past. We weren't dealing with raises to as close as you could get to the index, but rather something less than that, if raising at all. But here, the plan has already been to be utilizing the index to raise villages in order to have more revenue. Because of the ongoing obligations, and not the least of which is funding PSERS, which has not come down.
So some of these things on here, we can have numbers for, and some we cannot. But the savings from the ERIP program, we should know better idea of that next week, correct?
Yes.
Before that meeting, he should be able to put that in. I know that some people have been working pretty hard on the ESS coming back as employees, well, not ESS, but the paras coming back as employees of the district. Do we have a number on that?
I don't see Mr. Novikov here. I would have to get that information.
Do you not have that, Mr. Marnell? I know he was working with you on that.
Well, I know he took information that we gave him and then he formulated a plan that he sent to you folks. I don't know if he's finalized his work or not. I know there were outstanding items. For example, the final rate of pay, health insurance, what health insurance plan, dental and vision and group life and items like that. So that's why I still left it as an unknown until, we get a final plan from Mr. Novikov on that, or he can give it to me and Mr. Masha, and then we can take it from there.
Well, there's actually a proposed plan that's in the agenda, which has the annual salary and then the reverse computed hourly wage at that $12.50 number, except for those who would work in the home, which is more of a, well, it depends on the pandemic and some other really specialized circumstances, but I believe that the number of those people would be much smaller to work in home. And the health insurance plan is to basically offer the individual having to pay the cost that is not mandated for the employer to pay in order to make it affordable. So the school district is paying a portion, and I don't have perfect recall on that number, for a single person plan. And then the individual is paying the rest. There's nothing in the plan that mentions group health insurance. And there's, I don't think it's in there for dental and vision.
No.
I think you need to add SCA increases as well. Because we have some in there, but there will be additional.
And just if we could for a second about the paras, some of the information that Mr. Novikov had provided to us previously for his proposal that we are, I guess, going to be voting on to accept of bringing them back as employees. He had stated that there was a difference of about $4,179 over what we currently paid ESS. So that could at least be a placeholder for that number in terms of the change from ESS to rehiring.
I can't remember the date of that number and as to whether or not that took into account the employer paying the portion of the affordable care insurance that's needed to make it affordable. So I can't specifically.
According to this information, it was if each of the paras who were hired elected to take whatever was the offered insurance. And that's from what he presented to us at March 11th.
So the cost for 20 paras is $443,000. Do we know how much we have in there for, and actually we're only going to go with 19, I thought, so the number would be more around $420,000. Do we know how much we have budgeted for ESS currently? I mean, I'm sure that's multiple places, but maybe you.
Well, it is in multiple places. I'll have to run a separate sort to pull them out. And then we'll have to compare what's budgeted to pay ESS and then look at this proposal, and we'll have to cost it out. I don't know if it has not only with the hourly rate, but what it works out to be on an annual basis, plus the retirement, Social Security, Medicare, and workers' comp costs, and then what the cost will be for health insurance, the net cost. And you're saying there would be no dental, no vision. It might assume that they should get some amount of group life insurance, like maybe 25,000 or 35,000.
If that wasn't in Mr. Novikov's plan, specifically mentioned, then it's not in the document you have in front of you. So if somebody wants that in, then that document needs to be changed. And the cost, I didn't deal with the overall budget part of it. I was dealing with what was presented in the legal aspects and had enough to do there with just getting the annualized salary payment method straightened out.
I don't think we can afford to add anything to whatever the cost is that Mr. Novikov had presented to the board as pretty much being pretty close to equal to what we were paying. So
yeah, and my recollection is that it didn't include any of those extra benefits. The proposal that he had made, as far as I recall, it did not include any of that. I mean, obviously the mandatory stuff, the health insurance, obviously there's going to be teasers and all of that stuff, but life insurance, dental, vision, all of those kind of extra supplementals, I do not believe those were included.
I believe you're correct, Mrs. Freeman.
You're right. I think he said that was not going to be included, nor was life insurance. I think they were just going with the minimum legally.
Yes.
The difference is that the district is bearing the cost of the 5 personal time off days from the way ESS does things.
and they would be getting a PSERS benefit, which they're not getting through ESS.
But I think he calculated that when he did his presentation.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Okay.
So it's just the minimum required for hospitalization and no dental, no life insurance, no vision.
Mr. Marnell, could you tell us what the millage rates for next year will be for Westmoreland and Fayette?
Tentatively, Fayette 17.4419. Westmoreland 85.9442. Now Westmoreland only goes 2 digits, unlike Fayette, so they would probably want to round it to 85.94.
Okay. So we need to add SEA increases to the bottom there because it wasn't pulled over from the last one.
Well, we did add money for SCA increases. As
I
was,
understand, but there will be additional increases.
well, then that's an amount that would have to be added to the budget update.
Right, that's what I said. It would have to be down there for the TBD. We just need to keep track of that and make sure we know that there will be more.
So I think that we need to do something with Act 93, SEIU, the secretarial increases, the non-affiliated employees, and put some type of a figure in there for at least a starting figure for coming back to our next meeting. Do we want to say just put in 1.5% for these, at least to get us started? I mean, that's, I'm not saying that's where we're going to settle or, what we're aiming for or anything else, but for budget purposes, I think there needs to be something in there for where we're going, because all of these groups have took a pay freeze this year. So, but I think in looking at this budget, like something to be said is that, yes, we are, taking out $457,000 worth of ESSER's money. But, look at where we would be without that ESSER's money, because the things we're taking out our, the payments on the Chromebooks. Would we have only had to pay $150,000 this year, Mr. Marnell? Would that have been what, because it was a 3-year plan. So roughly, if we were to pay
Roughly.
here, we would be paying 150. So technically our deficit, would be much greater than what it is now without that ESSER's money. So again, it is where we are in the course of reality here, that we have no growth. We're at the point where we're raising, this includes an Act 1 increase. So it's as much as we can go. At some point, we need to do that every year to rising costs, but at the same time, how many years in a row do you continue to just continually raise taxes to the max, to the max, to the max? I mean, that's something that needs to be said here. We're a small rural school district. We are stagnant. There is no growth. It is what it is. It's not good. I mean, you figure we're showing $303,000 right now. If you took the ESSER's money back off of that.
Yes, you're right. The sad reality is that for the foreseeable future, trying to maximize as much as possible of the Act 1 index, as close as the state calculation form will allow, will never exceed the amount that expenditures will go up in salaries and benefits and whatever else goes up, utilities, busing, so on and so forth. So you will forever be going forward in a budgeting battle, making decisions, hard decisions on where to make cuts. And that is a bad reality for rural public school districts. It's unfortunate. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with state subsidies in the future. We don't know what's going to happen with federal subsidies. If you accept today's reality, to be extended into the future, it's grim. Unless, again, growth happens, and do you see any growth happening of an appreciable amount? It's a tough situation, and we've been in this tough situation. This is the 4th straight year.
Without that ESSER's money and then just making the 1-year payment on the Chromebooks and leaving in that math adoption that's been in there forever, we're like at a $611,000 deficit. If we didn't have ESSER's money to offset us there to the 303. And that's without all this stuff at the bottom, which is significant. But I think that if we want to put something in there for salary increases, so that we have a number to work off of next week, we just need to pick a number and have him put it in there to at least give us something to start with.
Okay, so Mr. Marnell said that the amount that we're increasing every year will never be covered by an Act 1 tax increase.
Mhm.
Now,
I believe what I said was that the amount that you could, the maximum amount that you could utilize with whatever the future Act 1 percentage index is, and it is wavered in the past, and it will continue to waver going forward. It's not the same amount. Whatever that additional property tax revenue garners, in my mind, for the foreseeable future, will never exceed the other side of the budgetary equation, which is the increase in your expenditure bottom line, your payrolls and benefits and utilities and busing and all the other sundry items that go into running a public school system.
right. So the amount that we can increase taxes every year will never cover the increasing expenses of every year.
Well, I hate to say in absolutes, never, never say never again. We don't know.
Future.
For the foreseeable future, it will not.
Right. So what I'm saying again and again and again is we have a problem.
Yes, you
We
do.
can't just keep going on. And I said the same thing last year. We can't just keep going on and pretending like it's going to be okay.
I don't know who's pretending. I know I'm not pretending.
Well, every year we get a different. Listen, I've been paying attention for a long time, and every year people talk about it and nothing's done. And you go on to the next year and just hope you survive. And that can't be how we run this school. We should have goals of bringing stuff back to the students. We should have goals of increasing the teacher salaries as much as we possibly can because they deserve it. Not what can we cut? What can we get rid of? We literally try to get through every single month, and that cannot be how a school district is run. That can't be. Something has to change somewhere for us to be able to give the kids the best education that they deserve. We should have a goal of next year we want languages back at the middle school. What do we do to do that? We want woodshop back. We want home ec back. What do we do to do that? Not what are we cutting this year? Okay, well, what are we cutting next year? What are we cutting next year? That's not how a school district survives. And we've been saying this forever, but nothing is done.
So I'm going to ask you a question because I spent hours and days and weeks on this. What do we cut? What do we get rid of? How do we turn it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Someone, it's not my job, but someone has to say, this is the things, these are the things that we need. These are the things that we don't need. You can't just keep going year to year. So if you have to do a feasibility study for buildings, who's in what building, who does what, something has to change. It can't just be, what do we cut every single year to get by? That's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to the community. And yes, we're in this problem because we can't catch up to the taxes not being increased for so many years in a row. but this is our reality. So somebody has to do something. We have to look at something. It can't just be, we cut something every year. There has to be an answer somewhere.
Well, raising the tax rate is just part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the growth in the school system, in property, taxable properties, and that's the bigger problem. You don't have the growth. You know, Friday and Saturday, helping my son move from his apartment in Cranberry to a townhouse in Wexford, and moving his girlfriend from her rental down here in Scottdale Borough to that townhouse. They're expecting our first grandchild in June. When I was up there, and I've been up there before, it's just driving around and looking at what is up there and the explosion in the growth that I've seen over 20 years going up there from my first PASBO workshop at the Sheraton Inn off of the Turnpike in the Warrendale there. So that whole area, Warrendale, Cranberry, Wexford, is unbelievable property explosion in tax growth. Those districts don't have that problem that we have here in rural Pennsylvania. And that's the larger issue. The larger issue is the disparity in funding public schools. We can't make up for what those kids get in those districts, the Fox Chapels, the Upper St. Clairs, Northern Allegheny, Cranberry, Warrendale, that whole corridor up there. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And we can't make up for it down here. It is a problem at the state level. And how do they fix it? Because this is exactly what's been happening with rural Pennsylvania schools and also urban school systems, where you don't see the growth. When you're tied into a geographic boundary like the city of Jeanette or Duquesne or Clairton, there's no growth. And that's a problem. And I don't know how you fix that. So that's why rural public schools and urban schools are been fighting year after year after year to try to get this situation addressed at the state level. And again, we're also strangled by the federal government. This is what you got to do. But you know what? We're going to fix your Title I and your Title II and your Title IV revenues at some magic formula that they compute. So the end result is you raise taxes to what you can. And again, you're limited by this Act 1 index. And we're limited by what the multi-county rebalancing formology that's in their form limits us to. And no matter what that number comes out to, it's not going to be enough when expenses go up. You're right. Teachers and administrators and secretaries and custodians and maintenance and cooks, they deserve better pay raises, better salaries and wages. But how do you achieve that? Because along with raising salaries and wages goes a higher retirement payment. Again, that's another part of our problem that's happened over the last decade, the dramatic increase in the retirement rate. And now it's at this 35% level. Yeah, we get 60% back. But still, I'd rather have that rate be back to where it was 10 years ago. But so what do we do about that? I don't know.
The story is eventually, I mean, it should have happened by now. That will even out and start to come back down. It hasn't yet, but there are some things I think that we can do. I think that we can look at these LARDAs that Scottdale Borough wants to do. That might bring in new people. So there are little things that we can do. It's not going to fix anything today, though. That's why I think we need long-term goals of what we're doing. You can do the LARDA for East Huntington. When people come to us for stuff like that, we have to jump on it, not take 6 months to decide what we're going to do. Anything like that that could possibly bring anyone into our community is what we have to do. I think that we should be working hand in hand with the borough and the businesses in town, trying to bring people into the community. I think that we need to put money into a grant writer, someone who full-time is looking at just this, because that's the only way we're going to get new revenue in here is through grants. And we don't have the staff. It could be a supplemental for teachers. It could be anything, but someone needs to dedicate some time to that. Other school districts are getting massive amounts of money. I'm not talking about ESSERs, I'm talking about normally in grants. Because they have people who can write grants and have the time to do it. Or they've decided that they will do it as a supplemental. So maybe that's something we need to look at. There are things that we can do, but it's going to take time. And if we never move on it, we're never going to get there.
I will explore the grant writer option, Mrs. Smith. I do believe there's possibility on staff.
I think the other thing is we have done the things that we can do. Not on purpose, but by accident. We have not maintained a single solitary thing in this district. Tennis courts not been maintained and now they need completely replaced. If we don't maintain the track this year, that will need completely replaced. The sidewalks, the paving, all of these things just keep getting put off and put off and put off until they take a whole lot more money to repair. So we have been doing things other than just cutting. We've cutting things for the kids. We've literally been cutting things that are going to matter when everything's falling down around us, because that's where we are. We have SPC roof. We have all these things at the high school. You know, I don't know what the good answers are and how we save things right away. But I think the first thing that everybody needs to realize is that this is a very small rural school district with zero growth, and we cannot continue to just tax to get us out of this. Because eventually my home and many homes in Scottsdale Borough will not be worth the taxes that we are paying for a school district that is continuing to cut. So that's the sad reality of where we are. And I understand everybody in raises and increases, we all want to pay raises. We all think we're worth more money. We all think we've put in extra time this year and should be paid better. The problem is we're not a Franklin Regional. We're not a Hempfield. We're certainly not a Fox Chapel or a Mars or a Cranberry that is exploding, because that's true. Those places are seeing tons of increase in revenue without raising taxes. So back to the budget, do we want to agree on a rate to put in here for increases so that we have at least a number to work off of next week? Because obviously, I think SEIU is meeting, but I don't think anything will be resolved next week as far as salary goes, or this week whenever they meet. Trying to get together with Act 93 to meet. Then we have the secretarial plan to work on, as well as the non-affiliated plan. So there's a lot that needs to go on, but I mean, we're not going to have answers, but I think Mr. Mornell needs to certainly put something in there for that so we can see, so we can realize some type of increase there. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Maybe 1.5%.
Just for a starting point, is everybody else okay with that?
I would like to see it 2%.
I mean, if we were to do a calculation with 2% and we see that next week and think, oh, wow, that's completely out of the realm. I mean, it's by next week, it's not a do or die. So if 2% at least, gives us an idea, it's still, there's still discretion there. It's not a solid, the end, right? So.
Yeah, there's a reason why they don't put, why we don't put the salary increases in the budget.
Right.
I'm not going to
understand that.
mention why, but I mean, I'm okay with putting them in there because I think there has to be an increase in salary for these bargaining units. I mean, so let's put it in.
I mean, and then we can see what that looks like next week and know yes or no, or, you know, how far off that number really is from where we need to be. Obviously, when we come back next week and even the following week, there's going to have to be cuts. I mean, we're not going to get to a balanced budget without any cuts. So does everybody agree for him to show us what 2% will look like?
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
Does anybody still need this form that's up? Can we take that down so that we can see everybody whenever we're talking here? Thank you.
Also, is there a way that we can get a breakdown of the things that we still have to decide on, what ESSER's money can be used for and what it cannot be used for? Which of these things, I should say. So for instance, can we use ESSER's money to fix the tennis courts? Can we use it to do the track? Can we use it for some of the wage increases? Can we use it for, I'm just going through, what can we use it for and what we can't, or what we expect to use it for?
So, good question. I shared in an earlier time with the folks who were on the committee, there are three broad areas that we can use: safety and mitigation, academics, and then the third was technology. In the ESSER's 3, which is a newer and bigger one, I'm not as confident that we can't expand there. I've really focused on 2 because, to be truthful, trying to do 2 grants of that size at the same time would be very difficult for me to manage. So I've really focused on completing 2. I have not spent a lot of time, Mrs. Smith, looking at 3 and the rules for it, but I will. I'll be prepared to talk about all of that next week, including how we are prioritizing our list for you for next week in ESSER's 2, the 1.4. That includes the money that has been accounted for from the Chromebooks and so on. And then the things that each building has met with representatives to try to identify priorities. I've listed them. We worked on that today as an administrative team. I didn't have a chance to finish the spreadsheet and have it ready for you. I'll have it in the next couple of days. So you'll have it well in advance of the next meeting to consider and look at. But as far as those other lists go of things that you listed, I'm not sure in ESSER's 3 if those fall under that category yet, but I'll find out for you. I've been singularly focused on making sure we complete 2, because there are some things that we need to do right away. And I'd like to have those things in and get that grant completed as soon as possible.
Mrs. Smith, also, and Mr. Clare, for your information, Dr. Conway just sent emails out that the IU is going to conduct ESSER spending breakout rooms where the superintendents and the districts are going to get together to share ideas as to what can and cannot be used. So I would like to have Mr. Clare be a part of that with me, but that will be taking place this Thursday at 2 o'clock. So at least there'll be some ideas.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Excellent. Thank you. That's excellent.
Okay, so does anybody else have anything budget related? I think we need some more work as far as like coming back and looking at what these salary increases will look like. Maybe we'll have more information on the ERIPs. Keep in mind also that hand in hand with those ERIPs is going to be a payout number for sick days and vacation days for each of them as well. So maybe Mr. Masha might be able to share that information with Mr. Marnell as to who it's going to be, so he'll know what we're looking at as far as those days go. Does anybody else have anything budget related?
Mr. Marnell, I will give you those names tomorrow morning. At least
Sure.
once I have
Thank
up
you.
to date.
Yeah, so was the deadline Friday, May 7th?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the time, the deadline time?
I thought it was the 6th.
Wait,
Oh, is it the 6th?
hold on. Let me pull the.
So I was just going by memory. I apologize. I don't have it out in front of me.
May 6th at 3 p.m.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else? Is everybody okay if we move on to solicitor information? Okay, solicitor information.
My comments would be limited to the specific subject matters dealing with the business manager's contract, the plan for the paraprofessionals, and then we also have the information about whether to invite East Huntington Township to do alerta. So do you want me to make those comments when we get to those items?
Yes, please. I think it'll make it easier. Okay.
That would be it. Thank you.
Okay. No old business, new business, WIU, general operating budget 21-22.
Board is asked to approve the WIU 7 2021-2022 general operating budget.
You need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
2021-2022 school calendar.
Board is asked to approve the 2021-2022 school calendar.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I see that we're starting school a lot later than typically. Is there a reason for that?
We started out with, I tried to be as consistent with other local districts around us, keeping in mind that we always have, we're confronted with Westmoreland County Fair. We have to contend with also. So I wanted to be consistent with what other districts were doing, and I wanted to start out kind of on a slower. We've found out in the past, if we start out with 3 days going into the Labor Day and then 4 days a week, it kind of eases the kids back into the swing of things, and it's not a big jolt for them. So we want to try to ease. Keeping in mind that we always have, we're confronted with Westmoreland County Fair. Oh, what happened?
That was weird.
Wow. So the first week would be a 3-day integration. The following that would be the 4 days. And then it would be the third week that the kids would be back full scale with the way things are going and the way kids have this year. Easing kids back into it and starting it at a slower pace might be more beneficial. It's been a trying, I'm sure everyone is aware, it's been a trying year.
Yeah, and then I just had one other question. There seem to be several Act 80 days that are on Wednesdays instead of maybe a Monday or Friday. Can you explain that? I think that some parents had some questions why it would be in the middle of the week.
Just trying to find the best days that would accommodate some of the professional developments. I mean, we could, we just thought that it was a good place to put them. Two days on, kind of 2 days, have an Act 80 day and then finish out the week.
Yeah.
Giving the kids a long weekend.
Why would they do that?
I know. Why wouldn't they give the kids?
Kiefer, Mr. Kiefer, you're not muted. So do you think that, I lost track of what I was saying. The Columbus Day is listed, but it does not say that it's an Act 80 day or that it's school off. Is that an off day? It just says Columbus Day.
I do believe that is a day off. Yes. I don't know why that's not on there.
So is there a way to change these Act 80 days to a Monday or a Friday? I'm just going to be honest, like, I think that families, it may be more beneficial to them to have a Monday or a Friday rather than a middle of the weekday.
I could amend them to a Friday or a Monday. If
Does
you would like, I could
see-
redo this and have it for next week.
Does anybody else see that as being more beneficial to families being a Friday or a Monday?
Well, and that's the only reason I brought it up. I didn't know if there was a specific reason that they're on Wednesdays, because I did get some messages about that. But if there's a reason that they're on Wednesdays,
I think it's a great idea. Honestly.
what did you say,
Which
Mr.
way,
Clerk?
Jim, did you think? is-
Instead of, yeah, Monday or Friday instead of the middle of
Oh.
the week.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, I think I would probably prefer one or the other at the end or beginning of the week instead of breaking the week up.
I will amend that. I will make them Mondays.
And so then I just wanted to clarify, obviously there are no snow days on the calendar. If we are encountering snow days next year, they're just going to be virtual instruction days. Is that correct?
Yes, we still have, we applied for 3 years for the flexible instructional days.
Okay,
So we're still under that auspice.
okay. I mean, honestly, I think it'll be, I know people were really mad about it this year, but I think it was kind of because of the general schedule we were on with being hybrid and all of those things. I think generally speaking, it's not going to be as big of a deal if we're in school normally. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal, but I did want to just bring it to everyone's attention and clarify that that is the plan to handle snow days.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All right, we're going to table that. Do I need a vote to table that, Mr. Petonic?
You do because it's on the agenda.
Okay.
I will make the motion to table this to next week.
I second.
Do I need a roll call or can we just,
Voice vote.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Contract for paraprofessionals?
Sorry, I was making a note. The board is asked to approve the basic plan for paraprofessionals. If the board wants to add additional benefits and items of cost, the board will need to specify and have the administration provide costs for those items for the next meeting.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I will second.
Discussion?
So this is the plan that's currently in board docs. You're motioning to approve that. It's a 2-year plan.
Is there any other discussion?
Can you remind me why we're only doing a 2-year plan?
I sort of had to deal with this. The plan that was sought from the outside entities would have been a 2-year plan.
Yes.
I think the information I had from the board is nobody wants to do a 1-year plan because it just doesn't give you enough time to see really how everything's working, and it doesn't provide enough, I guess, security for the employees. I had no direction to use a 3 or a 4. And we don't know what's going to be happening with, when I say we, I mean, I guess the all school districts, for that matter, employers, what, if anything, is going to be happening with guaranteed minimum wage and what that would be. So trying to project those kinds of considerations onto this group for unknown extra years is, I mean, if you want to do that, that's up to you, but I dealt with what we already had and what was presented by Mr. Novikov, and he didn't present a 3 or 4 year plan and what the increases would be, if any, and those kinds of things. So I worked with what we, insofar as the number of years, what was already on the table.
I think I'd just kind of like to see, in my head, I'm thinking a 3-year plan is better. It gives them a little more security rather than just 2-year, but I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
At the same pay or higher pay?
That would be a board decision.
Well, if you're making you have a
I'm
plan
just
in front of you. So if you're making a motion to amend this,
I did not make a motion. I'm asking what everyone else thinks.
I think as much as I would like to give more, longer, because I'm somebody that truly supports bringing them back, I think we just had this big discussion of where we are financially. And I think I have to agree with Mr. Patonic in not knowing where we're going to be 3 years from now. Obviously, this is one of those groups who isn't locked into a contract where we have to be negotiating for a certain amount of terms. So I think maybe just going 2-year for right now is the better place to be.
I agree.
I would, I'd probably like to see us go with 3 or, 4 longer. I don't think this is a group that we're going to part ways with again. We made the mistake once. But whatever, I guess whatever the majority thinks, I understand the reasons for the 2. But
I think this is also a group that is not in a contract. And if you wanted to go back at a year of this contract and make another plan, certainly you could do that. You would know what the terms of, you would know what the terms of all of our other agreements are and how long, because I think we need things to stagger a little bit better. We can't have everything expiring all at one time again. So possibly in a year, come back and revisit this if we wanted to extend that.
I could go for that.
well,
Good point.
I'll just stop there. Okay.
Does anybody else have any comments, discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
yes,
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Okay, LERTA, East Huntington Township.
On a motion of and seconded by, be it resolved that, and the board will need to make some choices. Southmoreland School Board hereby declares its interest in pursuing alerta for certain undesignated areas of East Huntington Township, Westmoreland County, and request that the Board of Supervisors of East Huntington Township take the necessary steps, including a public meeting, to begin their part of the process for making their findings and declaration, and recommends the following for the plan. Number 1, the areas described on Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated by reference, which are commonly known as Westmoreland Distribution Park West and Westmoreland Distribution Park East. Number 2, establish the longevity of the availability for accepting LERTA applications from enactment of the enabling resolutions and ordinance of the taxing districts to no later than, and that needs to be decided, deciding the ending date or number of years to sunset of the LERTA plan. And number 3, establish the schedule of abatement tax reduction as follows. And that choice would come from Exhibit B. And number 4, takes such other steps as necessary to accomplish the same and notify the school board thereof.
That should be designated, not undesignated, because it is designated, the Park West and East. I don't know when you want me to make any comments because you don't have a motion yet, but, or not, for that matter.
I think there's a lot of board members on here that were not at that meeting and they might not understand completely what this LERTA is in regards to. I don't know if you want to share that, Mr. Petonic, or you want Gail or I to share it.
I'll take a crack at it
Okay,
if you want, if you wish. Is that all right?
that's fine.
On April 23rd, 2021, I believe there were 3 board members from our district participating, Mr. Masha and myself, the 3 supervisors of East Huntington Township for an information session with Mr. Jason Regani and Ms. Kim O'Donnell from the Westmoreland County Industrial Development Corporation. There was also an individual representing a company, it's Atlas something, which I believe has been hired by the now parent company, Performance Group Services, PGS Inc., which has acquired ownership of what we know of as Reinhardt Food Service. And it's now designated Reinhardt Food Service LLC. And this concerns their existing building and location in the Park West portion. There is a substantial structure there. They're considering whether to expand that structure in order to provide more refrigeration space, freezer space, coolant space for more fresh food type of products, or in the Richmond area. The current situation there, according to their presentation, is that they have a lot of inefficiencies in trying to move foods around and to be able to have adequate storage space. So the present assessment is not affected by this. It is only if they would decide to do the improvement, apply for the LERTA. First, the LERTA would have to be approved, apply for it, and then build the structure. It would be essentially pushing out the envelope of the building to make it a larger structure with more of those types of special features. The considerations that you have before you is how long the plan should be in existence. Many times municipalities put a limit on the number of years. There are some instances when they don't put a number on them. My thoughts on that are to make it for a few years, but not completely a really long period of time. And my reason for saying that is another thing that's going on that we didn't get a presentation on for the entire board previously is that Mr. Regoni is learning that the situation with whether the state can legally or will increase the longevity of the KOEZ area. And that might not be known until later in the year, because originally he was supposed to be coming back to you to discuss some changes with that, to get some things locked in. And now there's uncertainty as to whether or not that can even be done. I think what I'm saying conservatively is if you put some numbers out there in order to attract this business, they might then become a floor for some other deals that you really didn't intend them to be. So that was, you can disagree with me on that, but that is my way of viewing that. The length of the plan, you have discretion on. They made a pitch for a decreasing plan of 6 to 7 years. They made a pitch for, not they, I mean, the person from PG, the consultant, for a 2 to 3 year 100% abatement. There's one schedule that you have that would do that. The other two do not. I guess it was my thought on that, to wait 3 years before you saw tax dollar one is an awful long time to wait. The fact that they didn't make it an absolute requirement for 3 years means that I'm taking that to mean that you still should be in the running with a 2-year plan, but you can disagree with me on that. On the other hand, you could also take an approach that you only wanted 1 year. I guess my concern is that them having made that pitch, and there are some other areas in the county run by the Industrial Development Corporation, but they don't have a building there, so that they can't use them, do have 100% for 3 years. But there's also some that do and that's all attached in that material that you have in board docs. I'm not going to go through each one of those again. I'm assuming that you've at least looked at that. So those are the thoughts on that. The other things I'd like to just go over is that what you're being asked to do is to start the ball rolling, because school districts have the biggest millage involved. And if you're not interested in doing this, then there's no point in other entities spending time on it. What East Huntington Township would have to do would be to schedule a public meeting on this and invite citizen participation and decide the area to be covered by. So why pick West and East? Well, West has this unit in it, so you're covering them, but you're also covering anybody else who might want to expand. Now, we don't know if anybody else would. Freightliner has already done some expansions without this. The area in the east has some vacant lots. Unfortunately, they have severe surface problems or undersurface problems with them, and have not, for the existence of that area, have not had bites on them. So again, my thought was interest rates are low now. Putting a short definite time period out there of a couple of years might incentivize somebody to either expand, or in the case of the eastern lots, if they can even be handled geologically, to get going with that. It would also have the advantage that if you got near to the end of it, that you could invite, starting another plan to add on to it or not. So that's sort of my reasoning behind those proposals. If East Huntington Township then approved it, it would come back to the school district and then ultimately the county to approve. Now, why the concern over time? Well, it's because we have been told by both Mr. Agoni and by the consultant that Performance Group Services is trying to make a decision and will make a decision, quote, by the end of the second quarter, which means the end of June. And so to allow for each entity to be holding public meetings to approve this, I'm concerned that waiting any longer on this is going to be too close to a deadline for it to be, I suppose, meaningfully considered. The other thing I'd mention to you is that the number utilized for the construction, which is a big number, it's over $30 million, includes a lot of things in it that don't relate to real estate. Additionally, the portion that goes to construction value, as you know, does not directly transfer to fair market value. It'll have some effect on it, but then the assessment will be nowhere near that because we have to relate everything back to 1973 because Westmoreland County's never done a district-wide reassessment since then. So I've tried to ballpark this, and I'm sort of reluctant to do it in public as to what might be the potential amount of tax revenue to be considered, just using what the current year millages are. And I mean, I do see a possibility for, and I may be off on this because I'm not the assessor. But just trying to take the square footage and then looking at the cost of, I'm sorry, the assessment that might be applied to warehouse space without those units being integrated into the real estate would be somewhere possibly around $120,000, $130,000. So again, the final numbers the assessment could be higher or lower, and that would then affect your millages. Your millages could go up. So you could also be making up some of that differential there if you were to do it. I think that's probably about as much as I can say, unless you had some specific question.
Mr. Botonic, is this a public meeting that we have with the township, or do they hold the public hearing?
They typically hold the public hearing and then you do next. I don't know how easy or difficult it would be to try to choreograph a joint public meeting. That we have a meeting on the 13th and the 20th, and then we have one in June. They have to advertise.
Okay. Well, I'm asking too because of the Scottsdale Borough one, if they can have their public hearing and then we can have one after. I didn't know if that was something that we had to do together at the same time or if they can be done separately.
Well, it's typically they're done separately. Trying to choreograph that to do them together at the same time is taking on a lot more, scheduling and everything. And I don't want to do anything to delay it.
Sure.
Mr. Botonic,
Yes.
the presentation that's in the onboard docs, the first page when it says, well, actually the second page, for the proposed project, those are all accurate. They're doubling the size of the building. They're adding only 24 new jobs. And what does when it says wages, approximately 70,000 annually, what does that mean? Is that the
Well,
total?
it's not going to create a large number of jobs because it's essentially warehouse work rather than it's not manufacturing work.
I understand
what
that, but they're doubling the size of the
expanding.
building.
Yeah, they're expanding the warehouse area to have more space to store more things and to move more in and out. I'm going to say, I hope the 71,000 is a projected salary for, I'm sorry, I don't remember if it's an average or a median. I've forgotten. I think it's in the document. I don't have that. I shuffled too many files around here.
The way that was described to us, Mr. Polakowski, if I'm correct, is that there's more of a need for fresher foods. So I think this was more refrigeration, freezer versus pallets of, they were talking about more fresh foods, less frozen, less boxed fruits and vegetables and those types of things that people are switching more to. They don't really have the capacity to hold them there. Something else to keep in mind is that we are competing against another state. I think it's Virginia. And my concern would be if they don't build here, will they move the rest of Reinhardt there? Will they close this facility altogether and just move everything to Virginia? Or would they leave what they have here? Because I guess that could go either way too. And we were told that the jobs that this would be creating are higher paying jobs, which is where that $70,000 comes into play.
Thank you.
They did also state that they were looking for something that was more front end loaded in those first few years. So I don't like, of the three choices, if it based on what we were told, probably 1 and 3 are more what they're looking for versus Schedule 2. I think maybe that 60% in year 2 in Schedule 2 might drop down too far for them in year 3. It's really hard to know what they're looking at in other states. But I think what he was telling us too was that our state, so Pennsylvania as a whole, doesn't really do much to recruit new businesses here. What they give isn't substantial enough for business to come. So it ends up falling more on the local level, which is why we're looking to do LERDAs or that KOEZ that we already have over there.
He did say that, and I didn't have time to go get other information printed off. You never know for sure when a state is going to decide to go chase after a really big project and put, a huge amount of their eggs into that one basket. And that did happen with Virginia, and I don't remember which year, for attracting Amazon. And they put a lot of money into that, and it was the overwhelming portion of their budget. So we don't know again whether or not, that might be happening with that state, or for that matter, our state. There's just so many unknowns when you get involved with these things that make it really hard to deal with in trying to game out what your chances are. So I just think, well, it's up to you to decide. I was reluctant to recommend 3 years of 100%.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, if we pass whatever Schedule 1, 2, or 3, and they don't like it, is there like a negotiation with them to say, hey,
We don't know for sure, but the way it was being presented, like they're getting ready to make a decision. We don't know if they've already made a decision in favor of Virginia and they're using us to squeeze them, or vice versa.
Okay.
Now, they may be completely fibbing, but normally, you would think by the second quarter, you want to get going with something. So I did take that part seriously. And that's the only information we have.
Is there any other?
Yeah, I think with the Scottsdale one, we had discussed 2 years of 100%, correct?
Yeah,
Sure, ring the bell.
I think that is what we discussed. I think the reason this feels different is because there is the competing location. I feel like what Scottsdale is doing is just a little more generalized, and this has an actual, particular project in mind that possibly has a competing location that, like Michelle said, the impression they gave was that if they didn't choose us for the expansion, they would still be maintaining their operations. But once again, of course, they're not going to say anything different. You know, like they're not going to say, oh, well, if you don't pick us, we're going to leave everything. Like they're going to, you know, still want us to have some hope. So I feel like because there's that competing location, I feel like we're not really in a huge position to say, no, we're not willing to accept what you're discussing. I mean, I feel like I would be most comfortable with Schedule 1, which is the 2 years of 100% and then the 75%. I feel like that is closest to giving them what they need, but still being fair to us. I think that's probably what I would be most comfortable with. But yeah, like David said, we have no idea if they've already made a decision and are just trying to see what they can get, or who knows, but we're not really in a whole lot of position to, you know, play chicken with them, quite honestly.
The other aspect, and I hate to talk about this in public, but I'm sort of forced to, is that, you know, with 3 years of 100%, one of your other problems could be, and there's no way of knowing for sure whether or not, whether they get this or don't get this, they might seek a reassessment. And if that were to happen, you know, waiting 3 years and getting a reassessment, you know, it's just waiting a long time to see that first, you know, real money coming in. That's sort of a negative view of it, but I mean, there's always the potential for that. So trying to get to year 3 and starting to see some revenue, given the discussion that you had earlier tonight, I think I sort of had that in the back of my mind also when I was coming up with these schedules. In fact, I know I did. About how long you can wait for new, you know, more revenue. But you're right, there's a chance that they won't, that, you know, they won't do it here.
Well, I definitely don't think they're going to leave.
If they don't leave and we don't get it, then the alert is there for somebody else to take advantage of in one of those
Correct.
other lots, which, you know, it's kind of a longer shot, really. These people are more primed to get something done. But you haven't, at that point, you haven't lost anything. So you only lose, you lose something if you think that without doing anything, that they will still come here and expand. And we've had that discussion in the past about the theoretical aspects of that. And I don't see the point of going through that. Unless you want to
I
talk
think we
about
should
it.
go with a 2-year 100% is my opinion, but I'm going to bring it up again that I really think we should have Scottsdale. We should start moving on that as soon as we can as well. Because they did have some people interested in specific buildings for reasons that they presented to us. So
Have they scheduled a meeting yet to define the areas better?
I don't have any idea. I know they have a meeting on Monday.
Okay, maybe some contact in advance would help there. I assumed that was starting to happen. I guess I'm wrong.
I think there's a little bit of confusion between the two groups as to what's happening is my understanding. So I will try to contact them and see exactly what they need from us to move on so that we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, our suggestion, I mean, when I talked with their solicitor, I mean, the thought was that, you know, there ought to be a representative from our side meeting with them and trying to come up with a map for the whole borough.
Right.
Who provided us
Madam
with that
President.
list, that last list of all the buildings that were in Scottsdale and surrounding? Where'd that come from?
Scottsdale Borough gave that.
Scottsdale Borough.
Yeah,
Is
but
it- I think,
that was just for Scottsdale, not East Huntington.
because I glanced through it quickly, just looking through it, and I think it had on there the American Legion was closed or vacant. Is that I don't know how accurate. I think there was a couple
had
other
trouble
ones that caught my
understanding
eye
that
too.
also because I thought I saw somebody out there
There were some buildings on that list that were closed, that are still open, but I don't know if they're thinking like down the road, those may be buildings that may become an issue. I'm not sure. Because there were
Okay,
those.
Or have some other feature that would make them eligible.
okay. Yeah, there was a couple that stood out that I was kind of shocked about. Okay.
So what you need is a motion for schedule, I guess you're asking for a motion for Schedule 1, which is the 6-year plan, 100 to 100, 75%, 50%, 30%, 15% in year 6. And that it be, and then you have to decide when you want it to end. Deciding ending date or number of years to sunset. Is it 2, 3? Is it forever? 4, 2, 3?
So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion for the 100% for the first 2 years. Do you
Schedule
plan
1?
to,
Is it Schedule 1?
correct? Yes. Schedule 1.
We have to decide how long we want to allow it to be open.
Yes, for applicants to apply. Whether it's these folks or somebody else for one of those other areas that decides, oh, now would be a good time to expand the building or build on those difficult lots.
I'm going to say 5 years. If anybody disagrees with that, I'm fine with that as well.
Two or three.
I'm sorry?
I'm thinking more along the lines of 2 or 3. I mean, we're sitting here talking about how we have no money in the district to leave this open for 5 years and then
Well, it doesn't take money away.
it doesn't take money away.
Potential for
but
more.
I don't
I
know.
think Michelle's point is that you want it to have a shorter time frame to encourage people to act sooner as opposed to later. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts is, you know, if somebody sees this LRTA and they want to take advantage of it, but don't want to do it right away, they may wait 1.5 years to start versus waiting 4.5 years to start. And then we're not realizing 100% of that until 10 years down the road versus, you know, a few.
That makes sense. So 3,
Three sounds
It'll be
good.
June 30th, 2024.
Okay. I will second the motion.
Okay. Any other,
That's for the 3 years, Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Was there a number 3 that had to be?
The
Established
number,
schedule.
item number 2, on that blank line, you're inserting June 30th, 2024, which approximates the 3 years.
And then what about the third line?
Schedule 1.
Schedule 1.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
We have another item that I would like to walk on this evening. We had a board resignation. So I'd like to, Mr. Masha, do you have that handy that you could read?
I
Sorry.
did. Give me one. Mrs. Williams, Please accept this email as my resignation effective immediately. Thank you, Amy Love.
So I'd like to walk on to accept the resignation and then also to advertise for that board position. So we need to do that with time for public comment.
2 votes. You need a vote now to take up consideration of it. Simple majority approves that.
I'll make that
Then-
motion to take up.
Then it
consideration.
moves to the end to, after you've had your recess so that public can comment on it.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion from Mrs. Smith. I need a second.
I will second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Okay, moving on to personnel, school board secretary reappointment.
It is recommended that the board reappoint Margaret Tarzan as school board secretary at a salary increase of 2% per year for a 4-year term.
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Business manager / transportation director.
Board is asked to approve Pamela Mondock as the new Southmoreland School District Business Manager / Transportation Director at a salary of $109,000.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You'll need to include the number of years for the plan, and if you are going with a 2% raise, which would mean that it would be 109,000, 111,180 for the second year, and 113,403 and 60 cents for the third year. Because what is in the schedule, you have either a 3 or 4 year plan, but they were all calculated at 2.5%. And you would also need to reflect that you're agreeing to the evaluation instrument and the method of assessment will be agreed upon rather than being established herein tonight.
So as part of my motion, I would like to say that it will be a 3-year contract, 2% increase every year, and that there will be an evaluation every year that will be decided upon once she is hired.
I need a second.
I will
Second.
second.
That's agreed upon when hired, mutually agreed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Please reflect that in the minutes.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Assistant to the superintendent.
Board is asked to approve the assignment of Dr. Dan Clara as assistant to the superintendent for the 2021-2022 school year at a salary of $120,000 plus any agreed upon salary increase approved through the Act 93 agreement.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I will second.
Discussion. So I have a little bit that I want to say here. The hope in moving, first of all, the hope in moving Dr. Clara to the assistant to the superintendent is so that we can focus on some things that improving education within the district. We have a lot of kids that are going to be coming back that have lost skills, and we're going to be reassessing and moving forward and trying to determine the best course of action for the district. Also, this is a slight increase over what his salary was. I think it's roughly about $4,000, and that just takes him to be above the pay of all the other members in principals within Act 93, and it takes him just slightly above that. That's my hope for this position, and I think it's a positive direction for the district. Does anybody else have anything?
Mrs. Williams, may I add
Yes.
also?
Yes.
The job description that is attached is strongly related to academic improvement. So that, in talking to Dr. Clara, we felt that would be a positive approach.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Okay, middle school principal for 2021-2022 school year.
Board is asked to approve the assignment of Mrs. Raquel Sutton as a 12-month middle school principal for the 2021-2022 school year at a salary of $93,480.
Okay, I need a motion.
so moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? A roll call.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Solicitor request for proposals.
The board is asked to authorize the administration to advertise for a request for proposals for the position of district solicitor. And that request is attached.
I need a motion.
I will make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Custodial supervisor.
The board is asked to authorize the administration to interview for the position of custodial supervisor.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You need a second.
second,
Discussion. So I just wanted to say that there will be, Mr. Masha will be participating in that. And there's a few board members that will be participating in the interviews as well. Is there any other discussion? A roll call?
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-3 absent.
Custodian position?
Board is asked to hire Christy Smalley and David King for the 2 open 8-hour custodial positions and Eli Cirque as substitute as needed. I amended.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I will second.
Discussion. I just wanted to point out again in board docs, as Mr. Masha said, it says for a 4-hour position, we're not hiring that position right now. It just would just be as a substitute. Any other discussion?
Yes, where are we with raising the pay for the substitute custodians? I
That
know
is,
that a month ago, we had talked about doing an MOU.
we have a meeting on Wednesday with SEIU, so that is going to be a topic of discussion.
Great.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Resignation of videographer?
The board is asked to accept the resignation of Gavin Zimmerman as videographer.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
second,
Discussion. Roll call?
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Hire videographer?
The board is asked to hire Rick Fike as videographer at a stipend of $1,502.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Is that the prorated for what it would be for the rest of this school year, or is that the whole year?
We didn't discuss prorating it. I guess it would have to be prorated until the end of our fiscal year.
I just didn't know what you had discussed with him.
Yes, it would have to be prorated. It was $1,502 for a year, but considering that we're in May of the current fiscal year, I think it would be 2 months and then we would resume it from there.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
yes,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Madam President,
Yes.
before you go to recess, and I don't know if you're ready to do that, but just so we don't forget. So the public understands this. You have a resignation before you of a board member. So the first order of business when you come back would be to accept, recognize officially the resignation. And that would be a vote. And then your next vote would be to, I found my old language that I could read at that time, but you would be establishing a schedule, deadlines for interested parties to submit their statements of financial interest in their resume and letter of interest. And if it's desirable to try to get that accomplished in this month, you have 30 days of exclusive jurisdiction. You also have Memorial Day weekend coming up. So if you're going to aim for the 20th, then you're looking at a really tight schedule to advertise this in the Courier and to accept the documents, which in order to meet the 20th, they would have to be in by Monday, May 10th. Otherwise, you're looking at creating another board voting meeting in very late May or very early June to stay within the 30 days. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so if we take a recess, can we turn off live YouTube or no? Can we turn off recording? I mean, it'll still stay live though.
I don't know if I can turn it off and then turn it back on. I'm not sure
Okay.
how that works.
Okay, so if everybody can please make sure you're muted, turn your screens off. I'm gonna set a timer and we'll give it 5 minutes. Do we need a motion to recess?
We do, don't we?
Sorry, I already muted. Yes, you
Okay.
can take, you need a motion, a second, and a voice vote.
Okay.
I'll make the
I need
motion.
okay, I need a second.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 minutes. Okay, so our 5 minutes is up. Mr. Petonic, did you have something?
I did. I wanted to make sure, when the motion was made for the business manager, and Mr. Masha read the salary, I'm not sure if I heard or didn't hear. I don't think it said, or as per the form of the contract that is attached to board docs with the changes, 2%, 3 years, the evaluation instrument and method to be mutually agreed upon. I don't think it was specifically said that way. I know I was thinking that way, but if Mrs. Tarson doesn't have that in the official minutes, I would ask you to vote to approve that. And I tried to call Peggy, but I realized she's also taking other calls for her phone in, so I couldn't get to her during the recess.
So I don't think it says per the contract. I think we did say the 2%. We did say the 3 years. We did say that the tool would be decided upon after she's hired, but I don't.
To be mutually agreed upon.
Right.
Right.
I don't
So-
think that we said per the terms of the contract.
The form of the contract that's attached.
Right. I don't think that's
Yes.
stated.
Would you ask someone to approve, to make that motion again?
Can you
second it?
amend your, Mrs. Smith, can you amend your motion to include,
Yeah, are we back in session here?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
need
When
a-
we get back into a session, yeah.
We are back in.
Okay,
Make a motion to reconvene, please.
I need a motion to reconvene.
motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay,
All those in,
I'll redo.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, I'll
I'm sorry.
redo my motion then to say per contract, plus the 2%, plus the mutually agreed upon, plus the 3-year contract.
As per the contract that is attached
That is
to
it.
board doc.
Mhm.
I need who seconded that original? Was it Gail or was it Mrs. Raymond?
I can't remember.
It was Mrs. Rhodes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Are-
Yes,
Are you, okay,
I'm fine.
okay. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-3.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do we have any public comment in regards to the walk-on item?
Well, Mr. Kiefer would like to Mr. Jan Kiefer would like to comment, but I don't know. Mr. Pushkar, was it regarding the walk-on item?
Go ahead, Mr. Kiefer.
I would like 5 minutes on the walk-on item, yes. I can't hear the chair. I don't know what real time I'm in here.
Go ahead and start your
Go
comment.
ahead.
I hear you, Michelle, thank you. On Mrs. Love, I think she owes the people and the community an explanation of where she's been in the last months. It's important that if we don't hear from her, that we hear from the other board members that our elected officials were at work or if they weren't at work. I think that the appointment to her seat should be quickly filled. And I don't think that's going to surprise a lot of people who have been watching that seat open. So with that, I'll end my 5 minutes allotment for Mrs. Love, or for the that comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I need,
5 minutes now.
Can you repeat that?
I'm asking if I should start my 5-minute into the meeting comment period.
no, because we're not at the end of the meeting yet, Mr. Kiefer.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I need a motion to accept the the resignation of Amy Love.
I will make that motion.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Pelican,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes, and I would just like to thank Amy for her service to the school district. And it's been a very difficult time for her. I just want to thank her.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
So the next order of business in that regard would be for the president to ask for a motion and a second that the secretary is authorized and directed to notify the Board of Elections in each county of the existence of the below vacancy and advertise one time in the Daily Courier and continuously on the Scotty Channel and on the Southmoreland website until the deadline for the submission of the documents described below. That there is a vacancy in the position of School Board Director of Southmoreland School District, formerly held by Amy Love, and the school board will receive for each candidate A, written letters of interest with or without a resume, and B, signed and completed statements of financial interests for the preceding calendar year as required by the Public Official and Employee Ethics Act, all of which are to be mailed or delivered to the school board secretary at 200 Scotty Way, Scottsdale, PA 15683 on or before 3 p.m. on. So if you're going with a May 20th voting meeting, it would be, the deadline would have to be no later than May 10th, 2021, I'm sorry. The secretary will then supply copies to all board members and the board will consider as an agenda item voting on a replacement at a public meeting to be held on May 20, 2021, beginning at 7 p.m. Must be at least 10 days after deadline for receiving application and within 30 days of vacancy. So that will be within that 30 days, which time the board will permit interested applicants the opportunity to publicly state their qualifications and their positions on issues for up to 5 minutes each before voting thereon. If a candidate receives a majority vote, she will be eligible to serve until the first Monday of December after the November 2021 municipal election. So provided that it is more than 60 days since the vacancy shall have occurred. And that you would proceed by the methods of voting or taking comments from the proposed candidates and from the method of voting that night that you utilized the last time this came up.
Okay, so I need a motion.
I will make the motion.
I need a
Second.
discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 3 absent.
Does anybody have anything else? Do we have citizen comments?
I just wanted to say something real quick. I also,
All right, you're right after Gail.
okay, I just wanted to also thank Amy for her years of service to the district. And you're right, Michelle, it's been a very difficult time for her, and I wish her health and safety in the years ahead.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, Mr. Pushkar.
Yeah, we have Mr. Kiefer.
Okay,
It's Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenue, Scottsdale. On the East Huntington LERTA, as I said with the Scottsdale LERTA, I think you have to keep in mind the product and the service of the company that you're going to give this tax break to. So you have to just tell us what it is exactly that's getting the charity. On the contract for the teachers, you know, the teachers are the big part of the budget. This was a budget meeting. The contract salary, the pay for these teachers is tight, and I'm not interested in the retirement and that things, but I am interested in the healthcare costs, and I think that needs to have some description. And it's a lot of my opinion, and not just my opinion, I guess I should say, that America is the world's top consumer of the pharmaceutical drugs. Americans pay the highest prices. Let me finish. Americans pay the highest prices for these drugs, and we have the worst health outcomes among the 75 top nations. Is this what we're teaching our children? Is this the logic and the business that teachers want to exemplify to the children? And who do we elect the power that gives us these contracts? Back to the contract then. I think there should be a dress code for the teachers where they should not be wearing shoes with excessive heel height and toe box compression. Beards should be considered out of bounds for hygienic reasons. Perfumes, colognes for those of us who are chemically sensitive. I know there's students like myself that don't know what it is. These healthcare costs are options, and I think we need to have a discussion about that. I think we should have a performance rating for the teachers, and there should be a termination ability in that performance rating formula. And there should be a COVID paragraph for the contract where these teachers are going to be in person or on screen. They're not going to go in for if a certain this case or that number or whatever. We have to flesh that out going forward. And finally on the contract, I'd like to see a whistleblower incentive. You'd like give someone $10,000 to blow a whistle on someone that's doing something wrong. And to the current and aspiring board members, I'd like to know what your vaccination requirements are for the students. Society needs to know your inklings, and the candidates certainly should be able to talk about that. It's a sad state I'm almost finished. It's a sad state when the SEA, including members who are in retirement, haven't come out in public for over a year and talk on this forum when the very existence of public education in Pearl, in a lot of people's opinion, you have not been in business for the last year. These flash mobs that I had to fight through to get into the board meetings need to be stopped. And on that happy note, I can throw in one more thing. You know, if as adults we're walking around wearing masks, we're enabling the children masked in school, and the dangers of those masks and the benefits are just getting more and more clear that they shouldn't be doing that. But you know, there's only 8 or 9 people that are responsible for our children being masked in our public schools, and you're looking at them at each other right now. So good night, Southmoreland.
thank you, Mr. Kiefer. Mrs. Tarson, Nicole O'Rear was trying to comment. Do we have a number for her to call in? She said she had emailed you earlier today and hadn't heard back.
I had no email by the time I left work.
Okay.
Can she call in?
She can. I mean, can we announce what that number is, please? I'm sorry.
724-887-2065.
Can we just give that a minute and see if she called in? Sorry.
I have no calls from her on the school phone. And I
Okay.
have no email from her.
She's calling.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes, go ahead.
this is Nicole over here.
Go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Is it live or?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm on. Hi, this is Nicole over here. I'm at 1155 Valley View Drive, Scottsdale, PA 15683. I wanted to bring up a couple things. Hold on, sorry. Let me turn this down. I wanted to bring up a few things regarding the budget that was talked about tonight. So, Mr. Marnell was discussing the budget, but for the last 3 meetings, according to the agenda, there's been nothing that we are able to follow. The public is able to follow regarding these numbers. I mean, my goodness, like we went from like $600,000 increase or influx last meeting to now we're not at that anymore. Like, where did those numbers like end up? There's nothing to follow. There's nothing for the public to follow, especially when we're talking about increasing the millage rate or increasing our taxes. Like, what are those millage rates? Because it seems like there's like somebody has a different idea of what those millage rates are, according to either like the Act 1 or the referendum. Like, this isn't making much sense. And to be talking about a public, or to be talking about a budget, you know, regarding like a very sufficient increase in taxes, like it needs to be very well known to the public so the public can follow along and follow along with the members of like where all these numbers are coming from, because it doesn't make any sense to like this outside world here. So I just wanted to can we be a little bit more proactive on that? Like, if there is going to be budget talk, can we make sure there's something out there for the public to follow along with? And then the second thing I wanted to know, I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask this, but something got brought up about Mrs. Sutton going from the vice principal at the high school to the principal at the middle school. It was voted on that she got an increase in pay. Is that because she's getting the position for the middle school principal? Like, I don't know, it just kind of seemed a little odd. I mean, if she deserves it 100%, it didn't make sense to me. So I just wanted some clarification on that. But other than that, I think that's all I had to discuss. So I hope everyone has a great night, and thank you so much.
Thank you. So just to clarify, because I guess we didn't put any clarity into Mrs. Sutton, she's going from a 10-month employee to a 12-month employee. So literally her salary was divided, and that's why. So it's literally just, if you took her salary as present divided by 10 months and then multiplied that by 12, that's where that salary came from. And that would be her starting salary for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, that makes, yeah, I understand it now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't think we really discussed that at all. We just kind of moved through it.
Yeah, so it got me confused. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, are there any other comments? Citizens' comments? You're not a citizen.
I know. I just want to ask Mr. Masha to call me for a minute after the meeting's over to clarify something about tomorrow.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
We still have a budget meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Is that still on, or did we take care of what we needed to tonight?
You're muted, Mr. Basha.
It wouldn't hurt for us to touch base.
Okay,
I'm not available tomorrow, so I don't know if it'll just be you and Mrs. Raymond, if Mrs. Smith's available or not, but somebody should touch base just to make sure that we're adding in some of those things that need to be added in and taking out things that need to be taken out, and maybe get us in a better place for next week's meeting so that we can have good numbers at the beginning of the week that board members can look over.
1 o'clock.
okay.
Thank you.
And did you still need us to reconvene for executive session?
Oh, we kind of, do we need to, there are a couple things that were still on there, Mr. Masha, that are personnel things. Do we need to discuss those at all prior?
I don't have a full listing of those individuals that took the ERIP. I can give you, I could update you as to who currently right now, if you.
Okay, can we all try to get back into that just for 10 minutes maybe?
What will we leave this and go back into where it says the executive session and click on
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
Just to clarify, you're ending the public meeting, right? Not returning.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.